In this story, we are introduced to the main character, Chung Yen, who is preparing dinner for his partner, Hyang. As he cooks, he reflects on the day's events, particularly an encounter with Chi, a friend of Hyang's who has always treated him poorly. During a shopping trip for a birthday gift, Chung Yen unexpectedly runs into Chi, who mocks him and warns that he might be buying a counterfeit item, which would ruin the gift for Hyang. Chi points out that counterfeit goods can often be difficult to distinguish from the originals. He then mentions planning a special surprise for their mutual friend's birthday, adding to Chung Yan's feelings of insecurity and doubt about his own relationship with Hyang. Baffled, Chung Yan watched Chi leave. As he brooded over the unpleasant encounter, he realized he hadn't noticed Hyang had come home. He hoped Chi didn't have any malicious intentions, but it was clear that these people simply didn't like him, which explained why he was often excluded from their plans. His partner, one of the heirs to a wealthy family, was making an effort to greet him with a delicious meal, even if it was just a simple dish. Chung Yen wanted to help organize the celebration and offered to write the invitations himself, even though they could have been ordered elsewhere. Hyang didn't mind who handled it and allowed him to take charge. Happy to finally use his writing skills, Chung Yen agreed to help cool down the food before they ate. Even seemingly simple actions were performed with special enthusiasm, seen as acts of care for his beloved. Hyang watched closely, captivated by his lover's appearance. At one point, he even lost his desire to eat. This upset Chung Yen, who thought it was due to the monotony of his dishes. In reality, the heir was far more interested in something else, so he pulled Chung Yen toward the table and kissed him. However, such close contact in that setting didn't seem ideal, leading Chung Yen to suggest they move to the bedroom. His partner readily agreed, even carrying him to bed in his arms. Chung Yen cherished the touch, which meant more to him than just physical contact, whether it was a caress on the cheek or elsewhere. Before deepening their intimacy, Hyang blindfolded him. Chung Yen disliked this part, wishing to see Hyang's face during such a significant moment. Still, he felt happy to be by his side despite the occasional cruelty. The next morning, Chung Yen awoke first, still tired from the previous night's events, yet unable to fall back asleep. His beloved's face, lying beside him, looked strikingly beautiful. He felt no hesitation in gently touching his hair and face while the man remained unaware. But when the wealthy heir finally opened his eyes, he found the space beside him empty. Chung Yan's absence seemed odd. In truth, Chung Yen was already in the kitchen, eager to ensure his lover could have breakfast right after waking, even though time was short. As the dumplings cooked on the stove, Hyang was handed a warm drink as soon as he stepped into the kitchen. Shortly after, 2 plates of the special dish were ready. However, Chung Yen didn't intend to eat his portion right away. He first planned to prepare Hyang's work clothes. Yet, Hyang asked him to stay at the table during breakfast, likely wanting to spend as much time with him as possible. Despite remaining composed and emotionally reserved, Chung Yen managed to help him get ready for work. He appeared cheerful and attentive, eagerly waiting for Hyang to return home for dinner. He was convinced that one day he would win Hyang's affection, and then the issue would finally disappear. They would become the perfect couple, loving each other as they should. Chung Yen headed to his workplace, a school where he taught musical instruments, feeling ashamed for being late. After graduating from university, this was the only position he could secure, and the administrator, who clearly liked him, helped him notice and love bites from the previous night on his neck. He felt embarrassed for missing it in his rush to get ready. Fortunately, the administrator discreetly helped him cover it. Chung Yen felt uncomfortable dealing with such awkwardness, though it seemed to bother him alone. The administrator found it endearing how tenderly he spoke of his beloved, noting that not every partner could express such sentiments. Even when invited for drinks with colleagues, he declined, as his partner had promised to be home for dinner. Thus, Chung Yen politely refused, planning to return early and prepare something before heading off to his students. The thought that others saw them as a genuine couple brought him immense joy, leaving him flustered yet smiling warmly. While Hyang worked sternly in his office, managing subordinates for perfection, Chung Yen taught children to play the piano, appearing content and happy. Naturally, Chung Yen was the first to return home and decided to prepare something special that evening to surprise his beloved with more than just a quick meal. However, no matter how long he waited, his partner didn't come home, nor did he respond to the messages Chung Yen sent to let him know that dinner was hot and ready. Eventually, unable to stay awake any longer, Chung-yen went to bed alone, hoping to wake up in his lover's arms. It was well past midnight when the lights in the apartment flickered on. Hyung had finally returned and immediately went to the bedroom to see his partner. Noticing that Chung-yen was asleep, he decided not to wake him, instead sitting at the edge of the bed and gently stroking his cheek, just as Chung-yen had done that morning. But the peaceful moment didn't last long. Chung-yen opened his eyes and was overjoyed to find his beloved beside him. Concerned that Hyung hadn't eaten yet, he offered to warm up the food from the fridge, saying he could get up and reheat it right away. However, that evening, food was not at the forefront of the wealthy heir's mind. Instead, he presented his partner with a gift he had bought specifically for him, a bottle of perfume, not only wonderfully fragrant, but also housed in a beautifully crafted bottle, serving as an apology for his late arrival. Yet, it wasn't necessary for Hyung to apologize. Chung-yen understood that urgent matters at the office could arise and wished he had been informed a bit earlier. The perfume, called Snowy Forest, was deemed the perfect match for him, and Chung-yen found the fragrance delightful. That evening, Hyung was utterly exhausted, and to unwind after a long day, he suggested they take a bath together. They discussed their upcoming visit to Hyang's family's old home, a trip Chung-yen had always been eager to join. Although he wanted to choose his own clothes for the visit, his partner was accustomed to selecting them for him. In fact, most of Chung-yen's wardrobe had been chosen by Hyung, who rarely allowed him to participate in the process. Sometimes this felt strange to Chung-yen. He felt like a lifeless doll, a mere object to be dressed and used as Hyung pleased. However, he didn't protest, reasoning that if his beloved enjoyed this, there was no harm in allowing it. So, dressed as Hyung had instructed, Chung-yen happily headed to visit Hyang's parents. The family home was vast and built in a traditional style, clearly indicating that very wealthy people lived there. As Chung-yen accompanied Hyung to his parents' home, a massive dog suddenly rushed over, clearly excited by the visitors. Its size nearly knocked Chung-yen over, but it meant no harm. Fond of animals, Chung-yen accepted the pet's enthusiastic greeting, and Hyung even suggested he stay and play with the dog. Meanwhile, Hyung planned to discuss important matters with his father, a conversation in which no outsiders could be present. Several years prior, the elderly man had been in an accident that left him unable to walk, forcing him to adjust to life in a wheelchair in the comfort of their old family home. Hyung visited him every 2 months, often bringing Chung-yen along, so even the family dog had grown accustomed to his presence. When Chung-yen finally entered the house, the servants greeted him politely, clearly well acquainted with him. It turned out that Hyung was no longer meeting with his father. He had gone to a special floor of the house where he often sought solitude. This truth likely pained Chung-yen, though he couldn't express his feelings, knowing how important both the house and the memories of a dear person were to Hyung. While waiting for Hyung to finish his affairs, Chung-yen recalled hearing that someone significant to Hyung had once been forced to leave the country due to a family incident. The servants often mentioned that belongings of the departed still remained on that particular floor, which was why the young master felt so attached to it. Throughout their years together, they had always visited this place, and each time, Hyung spent countless hours in that very spot. Chung-yen didn't dwell on it too much, understanding that they were both mature enough to differentiate between the past and the present. As he fell asleep in one of the house's rooms, he realized he missed Hyung, leaving him with a deep sadness. When he awoke, he found himself in Hyang's arms, being carried out of the cozy room. It was decided they would spend the night at the old house and return home in the morning. All evening, Chung-yen wondered whether he should ask Hyung about the person who had once meant so much to him. In truth, he felt a pang of jealousy, though he tried to convince himself otherwise. Perhaps he simply didn't want to share his beloved with anyone. Yet the courage to bring up such a personal subject escaped him, so he quickly shifted the conversation, trying to build excitement for Hyang's upcoming birthday. It turned out that Hyung believed his partner wouldn't be able to prepare anything particularly special, expecting a fairly ordinary gift for the occasion. Meanwhile, Chi eagerly anticipated the memorable day, having planned an unusual way to congratulate their mutual friend. For this, he needed someone who would be the ultimate surprise for Hyung, and he asked Chung-yen to meet them at the airport. One evening, Chung-yen sat for a long time in the living room, already dressed in his pajamas, waiting for his beloved while working on his art to distract himself from missing him too much. Hyung returned very late, and was surprised to find Chung-yen still awake. He advised him not to wait up in the future and to go to bed in such cases. The wealthy heir had also brought a dessert for Chungyen, seemingly offering an apology for being late to dinner. However, the young man was so engrossed in his drawing that he barely noticed the treat. The dessert's packaging bore the logo of a confectionery located far from He Yang's usual route, suggesting he had spent considerable time getting it. This place was evidently one of He Yang's favorites, though Chungyen didn't feel any particular attachment to it. Out of respect for He Yang's preferences, he tried to appreciate the gesture. Chungyen mentioned that He Yang didn't need to go there every time just to bring him sweets. He would be happy with anything. Besides, Chungyen wasn't particularly fond of those types of sweets. For some reason, He Yang always seemed to think otherwise, so he had to keep eating them and feign satisfaction. Unexpectedly, during their conversation, the wealthy heir remarked that he found Chungyen's frame far too thin, which is why he wanted him to eat more. As Chungyen clumsily enjoyed the dessert, a bit of cream was left on his cheek. He Yang gently wiped it away with a single motion. In that moment, he noticed the familiar scent coming from Chungyen. Most likely, Chungyen had begun wearing the perfume his lover had gifted him regularly. Sensing where things were heading and not wanting it to happen in the living room, Chungyen suggested they move to the bedroom. Unfortunately, He Yang wasn't listening anymore. However, Chungyen found the courage to voice one important request. This time, he wanted to keep his eyes open so he could see the face of the person who meant so much to him. Naturally, He Yang didn't heed his words, proceeding in the usual way without considering Chungyen's comfort, which deeply hurt him. After He Yang went to shower, Chungyen decided to find some clean clothes, as the ones he had worn earlier were no longer suitable. In the wardrobe, there was an entire section dedicated to the perfumes He Yang had given him. It seemed that the man enjoyed selecting scents for Chungyen as well, a behavior that struck the young man as unusual, even suspicious. However, Chungyen chose not to dwell on what might be wrong with his lover. What mattered most was that they were happy together in that moment. Suddenly, his phone rang, startling him with the late call. It turned out to be his friend, who had simply forgotten about the time zone difference between their countries. His friend was due to return to the country in just a few hours and asked Chungyen to meet him at the airport. Zhang Lin was overjoyed at the prospect of reuniting with the people he cared about, having been separated from them for so long while studying abroad. The next day, Chungyen and He Yang waited for Zhang Lin after his long flight. Despite his exhaustion, Zhang Lin approached them with a cheerful demeanor. Though he was He Yang's cousin, it was clear he felt a stronger attachment to Chungyen and had missed him more. He Yang, however, asked his cousin to contain his excitement, at least not to display it so openly in a public place. Sensing the rising tension, Chungyen suggested they head home, as the returning traveler was clearly tired and hungry. Zhang Lin had purposely avoided eating on the plane so that he could fully enjoy the dishes Chungyen would prepare upon arriving at his cousin's house. The visitor even advised He Yang to propose to his partner soon, so they could always gather together and enjoy the meals Chungyen usually cooked. Once they returned home, Chungyen began setting out various dishes on the table. When everything was ready, he asked Zhang Lin to call He Yang for dinner. As usual, He Yang was working even at home, immersed in documents in his study when his cousin interrupted him, inviting him to the dining room. Zhang Lin reminded him once again that it was time to marry Chungyen, given how long they had been together and how happy they seemed in their relationship. But all he received was a cold reply, telling him not to meddle. It became clear that the reason the wealthy heir was still uncertain about his feelings toward Chungyen was that the person he had loved many years ago was soon returning. Although Zhang Lin didn't like this revelation, he quickly forgot his concerns as he finally got to enjoy the delicious dishes prepared for him. During the meal, he inquired about the upcoming celebration of his cousin's birthday, needing to know the place and time so he could attend. As it turned out, the party would be held on a yacht, providing a pleasant setting with stunning views of the ocean. Before leaving, Zhang Lin again brought up the need for a wedding, this time speaking directly to Chungyen. The comment greatly angered He Yang, who overheard the entire conversation. A few days later, the time came for the important event, and Chungyen attempted to choose his own outfit for the evening. However, He Yang decided to take charge, insisting that the young man wear a coat despite the warm weather, as it was expected to get colder later in the evening. In addition, He Yang selected a special accessory for Chungyen, glasses that were purely for aesthetic purposes, as his vision was perfectly fine. Not wanting to upset his beloved on his birthday, Chungyen easily agreed to any changes Hyang made to his outfit. They both appeared content, and the wealthy heir seemed to take good care of Chungyen, though in reality, it was only his appearance that attracted Hyang. Still, Chungyen did everything he could to ensure this special day was perfect, even presenting his gift to Hyang first, hoping it would please him. However, there wasn't enough time for Hyang to properly look at the gift, and after offering polite words of thanks, they headed to the ship where the celebration was to take place. Everything was beautifully decorated, and the tables were laden with an abundance of dishes, which most interested the birthday boy's cousin.